Okay, cool. So everybody, thanks for being on. Again, this is the Mastery Series for Espresso Agent. I'm Bill Crespo, and we've got some special guests today. I'm excited about them. So Stephen and Evie Jack, thanks for being here today. And so let's start from, because, I got to witness the engagement on stage to where you are today. I was there live when you guys, when Stephen did his thing, you guys were singing. So they're actors, they're singers, they're in the real estate business. So tell me a little bit about, Stephen, your background, Evie's background, and how you got into the real estate business. And we'll go with all the questions about everything else that you guys do.
Yeah. Well, so basically, ironically, Evie was the reason why that I really dug into real estate as far as like an actual career, because beforehand, just like in college and whatnot, I was just personally having investment properties and whatnot instead of living on campus. I was like, I'll go door knock and find places that wanted to rent it out. So I just kind of played around with real estate until Evie introduced me to it. Right when I was done basically working with cancer patients back in 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
I was working at the International, Keller Williams International, since 2006. And then Stephen and I started dating in 2010. And then he was looking for a change. And so...
Yeah. And we actually met doing a show called Rent. For anybody that knows, musical theater and whatnot, that was the show that really brought us together. So
you guys were there on doing the show together, met, and at that time you didn't know she was in real estate at all?
No, not at all. The funny part is that, when I was just we were going back and forth as far as what we do. And, I was obviously saying, hey, I'm kind of looking for a change because working with cancer patients, a little burnt out, right? Fulfilled, burned out, as you can imagine. And she was like, well, have you ever looked into a company called Keller Williams? I was like, the paint company?
Well, that's Sherman. Close.
Yeah, okay, got it, right. And so I was just like, what is it, right? And so then when she was the one that introduced me to the company, because we were both in Austin, Texas at the time, at the international headquarters. And so she was the one that got this whole thing started.
I was working with the events team at that time.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, and that takes a whole lot of work doing what you were doing before, because I had to watch you run around coordinating, and all the girls that worked on your team was incredible. Yeah. So just so you know, tell them now your position is an administrator for a company, right?
Yes.
Or for a person.
Ashley Lunn is our OP here at Keller Williams San Diego Metro, and I am her executive assistant, and I'm also support to our staff. So
cool. I've got a lot of questions about admin. And then now your job now, Stephen, is what?
Team leader. So essentially just providing a lot of the training, introducing people to the Keller Williams models, and still doing some, we're working with some large teams on the side as well.
It's so funny. This morning I'm thinking, like an hour before I wake up, I'm in this thought about what I'm going to do. There's all these questions I want to ask, because I think there's how to work as a couple, how to maintain hobbies. How did Evie ever think about becoming a bodybuilder? And then now you're training agents and teams. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. So the thing, what's interesting about you guys, and I also want to bring up to a lot of people that hobbies are important, right? For your life, can you imagine if you weren't doing any of these other things, how your life would be? I don't see you guys. That destroys it.
That is a huge, huge part of that's my way of a recharge. The theater is a recharge, even though you're putting in a lot of hours. It's my playtime outside of work, as well as the bodybuilding journey. So it's a lot of work, but I have fun.
Yeah. How important do you think it? I don't think enough, and real estate, real estate people. Some do, but not enough people, I think, really have a hobby. I'm trying to figure out, why don't they take the time to do that, Stu?
I think that the common misconception that people have, honestly, is that they're always looking for, people are saying, I want a balanced life. I want a balanced life. And they feel that the only way that they can do that is just nose to the grindstone, discipline, which is obviously important, but it's like going all in just one arena. You fail to incorporate the fulfillment aspect of it, and it's very easy to lose sight as far as what is your goal, what is your destination, because if you only do that all day, every day, day in, day out, always grinding, without having those pieces that still provide that fulfillment amidst the grind, I think that's where people lose sight, you know? So
your background's in psychology.
Yes.
So what happens to the brain when we, like, it's almost like, doesn't it shut down this anxiety that we have in our business, shuts down this creative side of our head? Does that make sense?
It elicits three different responses to either fight, flight, or freeze. And any one of those we see it all the time, right? To fight against it is that despite knowing that there's a better route, we still persist down this one just to be, for the sake of saying, I just have to do this. Not inviting creativity, not exploring outside, not being coachable, right? Not inviting outside perspectives. To flight, which is most common, where people will engage in real estate, make a few conversations, get yelled at a few times, and they want to flight against that, no fulfillment. Or to freeze, which is there's so many different avenues that I can go in. Which do I start out with first? And they never end up taking any action.
Right. They're fearing losing their business, where actually I see people that do have the hobbies, they actually make more money. They actually are more refreshed. You guys have been through a whole lot of changes in the last several years, some moving and all this kind of stuff. And then really, I think coming to your own now, I mean, really figuring out what you guys enjoy and do. What did you learn from all that change that you guys have had in being married and then traveling and now finding what you like to settle into? What did you kind of figure out about all this?
I'm going to direct that actually to Evie, because I think
that was a good move. That was a very good move.
Well, and for no other reason that you get to see the personality differences where, it's like, for me, I'm like, all right, this is changing. All right, cool. All right, just roll with the punches. So for someone that is hyper organized, that's super talented, that has that laser focus. And so for someone like me, willy-nilly, you're like, we're going to change this now. So I want to say, we got to hear from this one.
That was a huge learning and growing for me, because my personality is I'm super loyal. I stayed with the headquarters for 9 years. Right. And then here comes Steven, who was like, let's check out some adventures. And I was like, okay, hold on. But because we're so, for me, I'm so committed to our relationship. I was like, okay, the communication is huge. And because of that, it's been, even though it was bumpy, adjusting through the change.
Right.
Probably one of the toughest parts in our relationship was the whole move. But knowing that we talked through it all and are willing to make it happen together, that was, I think, for me, the biggest growing, and I'm grateful for that. And
growing in the relationship and just knowing about yourselves and all that.
Well, it's like in the communication aspect is that I think that when tension is high, communication is one of the first things that fall down, right? It's like when in lack of communication, a lack of transparency, ignorance prevails. And right. So I think that one of the things for us is that by opening up the conversation, and one of the huge things that I would say for any couples that are working together, anybody, just personal life in general, is that by opening up that conversation, not by blaming the other, and that's something that I really give Evie kudos for, is that it would have been very easy for someone with her personality of that structure, the discipline, the loyalty, to blame me as far as being the reason why to create all the chaos. But what's so important is that in our communication, the number one thing that at least I learned was the easiest way to foster that communication was by taking complete ownership and saying, this situation makes me feel this way. And so there's no attacking, right? So there was nothing that I could go on defense for.
Right.
She's not attacking me. Yeah. And it was vice versa, where I'm like, okay, well, based on this situation, I feel like this. And when you can just deal with, this is how you feel, this is how I feel, everything's out on the table with no judgment, no resentment or anything like that.
Yeah. So what's interesting is because she's the organized person, right? You're doing the admin stuff. I want to talk about what you see in administration why most real estate people fail on that admin side. And then Stephen, you're in the team leader side, the helping, you're actually coaching some of the teams also and doing all that stuff. But let's start with admin first. So what do you see that makes a good agent? I mean, when you look at the admin side and they end up having so much difficulty and challenge, what advice could you give agents on the administrative side to really get that fine-tuned? Because you're dealing with a top agent, you know, when you're working with someone who does really well. What are the things that advice that you can give some of these people in trying to keep this thing tight and organized? Because we're dealing with paperwork, we're dealing with schedules.
I mean,
for me
Yeah.
personally, just staying organized, really sticking to your schedule. I mean, if you and I think we've heard it so many times, sticking to your big rocks and the biggest projects that you need to, just stick to it and be able to say no on other distractions that keep you from actually accomplishing all of that stuff first.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, okay. So I'm a person, let's just say, because I just had a conversation with someone today that is allowing so much to come in. I mean, you're like on a scale of 1 to 10, Stephen, she's probably an 11 on this whole thing, right? She's actually really good at it. So now you have someone that you have to teach to get good at it. So an agent is starting to see production grow, and then they get into this almost imploding stage. So what's the first, you think, from your experience, 1 or 2 things that they should just right off the bat hand off?
Right. It's like, I'm going to think about that. Well, it's like, and I think that from an outsider's perspective, right, and then Evie can chime in on this, is that when she's talking about that laser focus, like one example that I can share is that even last night, today's her birthday. Woo, happy birthday.
Woo-hoo. Oh, that's right. That's right.
I had to drop that little thing real quick,
Yeah.
right? Self-promotion.
Oh, you're in the bonus column today, Stephen. Good job.
Right. So basically, like last night, I was like, hey, well, you know, let's do this for dinner. Let's do this. She's 2 weeks out from her competition. So even though eating healthy, it's not in her meal plan. And it would have been, how many agents do you know that always justify, oh, well, I've earned this. Oh, I've worked hard, so now is the time. Before accomplishing the goal, they compromise, right? And they sacrifice, and they're like, oh, well, maybe I can start doing this, right? It's part of either that fight, flight, or freeze.
Right.
So that one, you find those justifications. And so one thing that I've noticed with Evie that she does very well, especially on the admin side with our top producers, we had one gal that in our office that made her first $300,000 in 1 month, right?
Wow.
And she works very closely with this individual. And I always hear her conversations are consistently saying, what can you and only you do? Everything else, leverage. And I think that's what Evie does so well, is that when I see her sitting down with Ashley, when I see her sitting down with these mega agents that have these big hairy goals, these big, you know, this is what I want to do and I don't know quite how to complete it. Well, Evie's flat out just goes, well, what can you and you alone do? Out of all these things that you want to do, what can you alone do? And then everything else, then she starts structuring and saying, now what needs to happen first? What's that first domino, right?
Yeah.
Leading into the remaining. And if that's leverage, great.
You know what I see too, and tell me, because you're okay. So now that you're working towards your bodybuilding, and I mean you're going towards your pro card, but in that and in real estate, when people have some success because they've never been there, they self-sabotage themselves for some reason. Have you seen that? You know, in agents, why, you know, they like making that, I've never made this money before, and then they go back into this other person that they were before. How can we avoid that? Because, you know, we want to keep moving. We want to go someplace that we've never been before. Your body basically is in a place it's never been before, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, for me, it's like I keep my focus on it, because I really do have my goal. What is your goal? And you're gonna, for me, achieving that pro card means I will do only the things that will get me there. Temptations, food invitations, all of that stuff, right? And so, I mean, that's probably part of the bodybuilding that I love, is that discipline. And then the reward is like, oh my God, you get there and you're that close already to it. You know, like my last show, I was a runner-up to it within just a year of being part of the
Congratulations. That's awesome. Actually,
it feels great, because when you really, for me, when you put in all that work, and even though you probably crush other people's hearts from saying no to all of that invitation, the end goal is just very rewarding. And so I see that with other stuff for real estate, is that you just really need to keep your focus on what you need to do to meet your goal.
Plus you have a clear picture of what the end result is.
Yeah, I actually have
I'm gonna go grab that real quick.
Yeah, bring that picture.
I have a vision board of this bikini competitor, probably from the Beachbody, and when I saw this was probably two years ago.
Yeah, this started out 2 years
this
ago.
was my
That's your vision board. Okay, guys, take note.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
So it works. So the vision board, giving your brain that fixed target, is so important to not fall back into self-sabotage. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a huge reminder. So, I mean, I would probably highly, because I'm a very visual person. And if I know what my goal is and I see it every single time, even though there are hard days, it just takes me back to, okay, this is what I want, And so it almost like recharges you on days that you're completely depleted and you just want to give up.
And some people think this is kind of a goofy thing, but from the psychological standpoint, Stephen, that the brain is looking for a target, isn't it? I mean, basically the brain wants to fixate itself on a target. And when we self-sabotage, it doesn't happen. I mean, you look at the teams, look at the people in your office that almost make it and don't make it. I mean, how do you get them past that self-sabotage change for them? I mean, they don't have pictures.
Right. Well, and the main thing that we really look at is that everything truly is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Everything truly is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that can go in a million different directions, right? Our reticular activating systems are going to be, what is it that we're actually looking for? Because guess what? If you look for it, you're going to find it. If you look for the bad in the world, you're going to find it. If you look for the good in the world, you're going to find it. When people are saying, I want to make $1 million, they're not saying I want to make $1 million. They're saying I want to spend $1 million. Right? I've heard that before.
Yeah.
When we start looking at it from that perspective and saying, well, but what would you spend that $1 million on? If people don't know what the target truly is and what that means to them, then your reticular activating system doesn't know what to look for. It doesn't know what to focus on. And lo and behold, the traditional cliche real estate agent, right, becomes undisciplined, unfocused, and all with great intention, make no mistake. But that's where they want to make $1 million. They want to spend $1 million.
Yeah.
Make 500K. They'll spend 500K, and they're excited about that. Why? Because there is no true internalization of what that $1 million means, what that would do for them. Whereas with this vision board, right, that Evie creates, and then when you're able to see, this is the uncompromisable goal. This is the focus. Any point before then is compromising on your actual mission and your actual goal.
So let's talk about like the person who's afraid of making the call. Because I mean, you know how I don't know what monster they're creating, but you know how they get all this, I don't want to call them. And like you look at a phone number, you already know the personality and style of the person based on the phone number. The neighbor, everybody in that neighborhood's all like that.
Oh yeah.
How do we get out of that? That initial, fear, or maybe even Evie, when, I'm sure you have days where you go, I got to push through.
Oh yeah. Leg days usually my days where I'm like, oh, do I have to do this?
Legs.
If you just did that today. Yeah, those are like the hardest one. But that's part of the pieces, right? Of what makes your goal. Like that's part of the piece. You got to do it. You have your meals, right? You can't just do 50% of it and expect that, I am going to get my pro card with just 50% effort. No, everything, the coaching portion of it, the time that you put in, your cardio, your meals, every little bit of that helps you get to your goal. So you can't skip just pieces.
Yeah.
Right. Are you more efficient now, do you think, in your admin because of this journey in what you're doing physically? I mean, are you different at the job now because you're fine tuning your body and all that stuff?
It's a huge reminder for me because there are a lot of things coming at you, right? Especially in the office here, you got agents asking you for different things and need different support. So it allowed me to more focused and just the way I've done my bodybuilding planning wise, I basically chunk it down to what needs to happen each day and what is important for me. So,
I mean, think about this, David. She could probably be an incredible agent. I mean, with that focus. I mean, you know.
With no mistake, yeah, because it's like, and that's what you and I both know, right? That's the common thing, is that anybody can have a big hairy goal, and then, you know, it's like it goes back down to that little riddle, right? Three frogs are sitting on a log. One decides to jump off. How many are left on the log? Three.
Right.
Because just because you decided doesn't mean you took action on it.
Right.
You know, and that brings it down to your question, which was, you know, how can you take that first step? How do you just make that call? Is that what is the context that you're putting that call around? Because I think that what a lot of agents want to do is that they come from the heart. There are some, I've never met anybody that's not in some capacity coming from the heart in some way, shape, or form, right? But when coming from the heart, what we start doing is we're masking our own fear and putting it on that other person because we're flighting from that pressure on ourselves. We want to help, so what do? Oh, well, I don't want to inconvenience them. I mean, I just talked to them. They said they're not going to, you know, sell for another 6 months. I'll just wait. BS. That's an excuse to keep the pressure off of yourself, versus if you truly are coming from the heart, then look at it by saying, who needs to hear this message today? Not everybody's going to appreciate it. Get over it. But there is at least one person that needs to hear that message, that needs to have that message of hope as far as what their options are. And if you're not making that call, some other agent that may not have the best intentions, they will pick them up. And if you're not looking at it from coming from contribution and wanting to provide that message of hope, it's easy to justify our own laziness. Let's call it like it is.
Yeah.
You know, let's call it like it is. Our own laziness, we put the pressure on someone else by saying, I don't want to inconvenience them. Oh, I don't want to overwhelm them. I don't want to bother them. You know, it's because you haven't connected with your message yet and what that message can do for them.
And, you know, you said a lot there that's actually very important. I love what you said, you're masking your fear. And really, when you think about it, it's more like you're self-centered because you're so protective of yourself. Yeah. You're not getting yourself out there. So really, it's a self-centered. I don't want to call that FSBO. I'm afraid to call it FSBO. I don't want to be pushy. Or you're in a closing situation, meaning negotiating and closing, and you don't seem pushy. You're really, it's a protection type of deal, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's like, and it's the same thing, like, as far as like what I've noticed with Evie's bodybuilding is that here's a gal that I'm going to talk to her about her, like, she's not here, right?
She's not there. Don't worry about it.
Here's a gal that, you know, when she initially started out, it was just as for fun, right? She did a 60-day challenge and she got motivated and excited by it. So she was like, what the heck? Let me go for an amateur bodybuilding competition. She ended up winning best overall out of like 30 gals.
That's
so
awesome.
That just propelled into it. But where the magic happened is that it seems like what she's doing was for herself. It started out that way just as a hobby. But what ended up happening along the way is that people started seeing her journey. They started seeing her physical transformation. With the limited amount of time, because she is pursuing something that she likes, she has restricted amount of time to work. Therefore, the efficiency is forced. Well, guess what? Even though that efficiency was forced at first, did it long enough to create a habit that fed into her fulfillment piece, because I was contacted constantly by people that didn't know Evie, but said, hey, can I get her information? I would love to get some advice as far as her meal plan. I would love to get to know what is her routine like. Is there any way that Evie does coaching? Can Evie help me out with this? Like, inundated with that. Therefore, it feeds back into what we talked about earlier, the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
She started out as just a hobby, but had she not done that, how many people that struggle with their physicality, that struggle with their body image, don't see what can happen with just a little bit of discipline compounding each day?
That's like the quantum leap theory, right? That little bit of change mentally. And so many people, like, you know, with the people with espresso that have the tools that are still sitting there thinking, well, I bought it. Now
make
what?
Money.
Yeah. I'm rich. No, you've got to make the call. You've got to get past that fear. And I'm sure, Evie, when you said, well, I'm going to go now this way. And I tell you, I know how much work I coached, Robin Ravecchio for a while. she was out there, and, you know, she got a pro card while she was doing real estate, which was pretty cool. And it's that disciplining your schedule. So as you're working with teams, let's talk about team development.
Sure.
So I'm a single agent that wants to finally build a team. What do you see is, what does that person need to have as what qualities to be a good leader and expanding in a team? And what do you see is working? What do you see is not working?
Yep. What I see that is not working are agents that are wanting to build a team for others to do the activities that they don't want to. And that's when people grow prematurely, in my opinion, right? And lacking the key element of leadership. If you're passing this off to someone that that, hey, they know in concept to call, to contact, what the contact to lead to appointment to close ratio is, they know that, they can tell people, but they're not willing to take that first step. So they start creating a team, someone else to do it, right? Buyer's agent, hey, free assistant, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, okay, come on now. The ones that do it well are the ones that are willing to fail and suck a lot. Because then what that means is that if they're failing at a high level, they then can speak from experience. And that's not what it's all about necessarily. You know this, some of the best coaches may have not done the production of 3,000 units a year, but you coached numerous teams to that production, right? And it's like, regardless of how many units that you have sold before, those elements, but here's the thing, you were willing to fail at such a high level that you were able to have that outsider knowledge as far as foreseeing those roadblocks, those obstacles to come. That's where people actually want to follow you for the person that you are and the opportunities that you can create for them.
But I don't want to show people that I'm failing. Do you understand, Stephen? I have an image.
Bless your ego. Bless your ego, right? It's just like, and that's the whole thing is that, but at the same point in time, let's really look at it from this perspective, is that who in your life, just take a moment and think, anybody that you've ever looked up to, do you look up to them because they're perfect or because they persevered?
Yeah, it's going to be perseverance.
That's it.
That they got through it.
Yeah, that's it. That is that message of hope. That's the message of hope. So if we're not providing that message of hope with those options, hey, look, this is what the market's doing right now. Here are options now. I get that you want to wait, flighting,
right,
freezing, right? I get that you want to wait. And in order to know if that's your best decision, wouldn't you want to know what your options are now to assess if waiting's in your best option, right? It's like, those are the type of concepts that we fail to realize because we're leading with our ego, thinking that people like us because we're perfect. People associate with us and they relate to us because nobody is perfect.
Yeah, that is so huge. And tell me if you see this. The leader of the team or the person thinking about doing a team, I think we kind of semi-mentioned this, is now they have someone to do the prospecting, and then they don't prospect with them because really they're afraid to let them know what they don't know. I mean, that's almost, you're just shooting yourself in the foot, right? Building a team.
Yeah. It's like, and it's not a sustainable model. Congrats. You might be able to add some people to your database from that person. But again, if you start using people as tools, it's a failed model and there's going to be no fulfillment. It's going to be an endless cycle of, a revolving door. You see that a lot with these mega teams, where it's like, there's no retention because the value, it's not about the other agent. It's about what the rainmaker, right? The team leader, whatever have you. If they make it about themselves, they may be financially successful, but if it's coming at the expense of other people, it's just not sustainable. At one point in time, it's going to bite you in your butt.
Yeah. And both of you have seen this. I read something about the definition of a group and a team. I think some people think that a team that they have is really actually a group. The team is more of a cohesive operation, right?
Exactly.
That's it. So from both of y'all standard, when you're looking at a team and they're developing, I'm a single agent, what do you think my first hire should be? Is there a rule of thumb on this? I mean, what do you think I should do to get this team idea going? Who's the first hire?
First hire, I mean, honestly, we've come a long way. The first hire would have to be at least an admin, right? It would have to be an admin for no other reason other than going back to what we originally stated with what Evie was highlighting. Yeah, is that the operation side of it. Agents do agent stuff, right? Be the influencer, be the engager, be the collaborator, right? And then when you're doing that at a high enough level, it comes back to that one question. What can you and you alone do? I hear Evie ask that all the time. What can you and you alone do? Go do that at a high level.
Right.
Right. And then when you're starting to do that at a high level, things are going to start falling off your plate because we can't do it all.
Right.
Right. And it's easy for many of these solo agents to say, oh my God, I can't justify, $40,000, $50,000 for, an admin salary. Okay, but how much business are you losing by not having that admin? Nowadays, we don't have any excuses with the, development of virtual assistants. Yeah. My gosh, back in 2010, that wasn't too much of
that wasn't around.
Yeah, that wasn't really around. It was that you had to hire one assistant, then a second assistant. As we're now, as far as the effectiveness, the cost effectiveness, there's no reason why you shouldn't or couldn't.
So that's actually a very good question. I think I want to bring up to Evie also what you just said. How, with all these virtual companies now, they're out there more than ever. So now I'm looking for that right person. What am I looking for, Evie, that I should be hiring so I get the right person? What type of things should I have that person cover, at least off the bat, when I hire that person, do you think?
The operations side of it, all the paperwork that you don't need to be focusing your energy on, right? That's not really the business portion of it. I mean, it is part of the business, but again, just the overall operations of it, the managing of outside of dealing with your client.
They tend to go, I'm going to hire a marketing person. The marketing person is not an Evie person, I don't think. That's a Steven person. You don't want a Steven person on your team.
Right.
No, you don't want that guy. You need an Evie. So why do they lean towards marketing, Steven? Why do they always want to go there first?
Because bright and shiny objects.
Fancy.
Look at this. Yeah, it's fancy. Oh, look at that distraction. Oh, hey, oh, cool. Look at these, special things. And they're thinking, oh, great. This will get me more impressions. This will get my name out there more. This will do this. Bogus.
Yeah.
That marketing person, I mean, great in concept, but again, it comes back down to when you have more impressions and when you have more engagement, which ironically, if you think about it, Bill, you know this, do people create the relationships from an impression online, or do they create that from a conversation and a face-to-face, or like this, right? This kind of format. So you having a marketing person to get your name out there, good job. You're the most well-known person, but the least influential because you can't carry all that business.
You can't. Yeah. And I want to remind everybody, if you have any questions about this is your opportunity. Put it in the chat. Talk to Evie and Steven. So here's the other thing that wasn't around when we first met and I want to find out if you see this becoming a challenge in the industry, which is the iBuyer situation. Okay. These companies are coming in, telling the story better than the real estate agents. And they're in a sublime way saying, you don't need them. We can handle it. So do you see that happening more and more in your market?
Trying to. And I really do mean trying to, because here's the thing, especially out in Southern California, where at least when we're talking about our average commissions being at least 15 grand,
right.
It's just like we have a perception that a higher price point means that, catering differently. But the reality, as far as those iBuyer programs that really comes out, is, in my opinion, right, it's very much so predatory on the lack of conversations that agents are having with their database, their farm, their sphere, whatever have you.
Right.
They're coming in and they're profiting because guess what? If you're out there and you're not focusing on the people having those conversations and saying, know all of your options, the iBuyers come in saying, hey, we'll give you a cash offer. Never mind, it's 10% below what the market.
Yeah, exactly.
Never mind that. But an agent doesn't know. Or I'm sorry, a client or potential client wouldn't know. Any Joe Blow, or Jane Doe wouldn't have no idea possibly, but all they're seeing is cash offer. Well, this was always a starter home anyway. I guess I could accept it. So they're going down a path. Why? Because we weren't the ones to offer that message of hope. We weren't the ones to be in front of them first.
Right.
So,
and we're not, the skill level, I think, my opinion, from what I see, the iBuyers are doing really well projecting what their services are. We need now to step it up to be able to let them know. The FSBO really, I remember when I was doing sales, that really shocked me and changed my whole opinion on for sale by owners. When the guy said to me, the only reason why I'm a for sale by owner is because I'm looking for a good agent. I went, oh my gosh, what if I started every day thinking that they're really actually looking for a good agent, and the only reason why they're for sale by owner is because they haven't found it. And now the iBuyer comes in to say, hey, I'm the better looking agent, so that means we better step it up.
Yeah, well, it's like, and we run into it too. So many people get salty and they're just like, oh, this freaking iBuyer program, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, let's be honest. You know, this iBuyer program is a quick fix. Well, many a times, or like even for a FSBO, why are they doing it? Their perception of saving money. Their perception of saving money. So they're thinking I'm doing it myself. Agents that are listening right now, all right, considering building a team, considering bringing on that first admin, but financially you're just kind of like, I don't know if I can justify it.
Yeah.
And that FSBO saying, oh, I'm going to save money by doing it myself. Best objection for the FSBO is, how do you know if you're leaving money on the table? Well, guess what? I'm going to ask the same thing of those agents. They're not wanting to hire that leverage.
Yeah.
Because what? How much money are you leaving on the table by not making that hire?
And that leverage is going to give them time to even practice to be better. Wendy has a question for you guys. Says, could you revisit what you said about not hiring team members to perform tasks they're not good at, but in the statement from Bill just before was talking about encouraging a team member to make the call. So here's what I'm hearing. You probably got it. So I'm an agent. Sounds like, Wendy, correct me if I'm wrong. I may not be as good as I should be in lead generation and calling on the phone, but I'm going to hire someone to do that. So struggling because calling is a cornerstone of the biz, is it not? Okay, it's a team member to make the call. So what I think Wendy's saying is, what if you're not good at it and you hire that person to do that? How's that work?
It doesn't. Because really what it comes down to, and Wendy, thank you so much for participating, is that really what we're looking at is that agreed. Why wouldn't you, because it really comes down to the core concept, find what you're great at and do a lot of it, right? That's what it comes down to. If you're not great at it, leverage. Yet ironically, when it comes down to such a cornerstone of the business, which is all about lead generation and lead follow-up, is that you're just not good at it right now. That's what it's about, is that you're just not good at it right now. But guess what? The thing that, we always joke around that people are still like, Steven, I heard about your scripts. Hey, your objection handlers, what is this? My common response is because I said, I've screwed it up more than most people. That's the reason why I've screwed up a lot. You've screwed up a lot. We've all screwed up a lot. But that's how we get better. The muscles are breaking down before they're built. So if we leverage that before we ourselves can be proficient at it, we're robbing ourselves from the true opportunity.
You just triggered a thought about lactic acid, Evie. Let's talk about, so the person has lactic acid in the lead generation, same thing as the muscle.
But you still keep going, right? You don't stop. You still do something. You do your conditioning,
How painful is that lactic acid when you're working out?
You get used to it.
Okay, you get used to it, but there's times in which like I'm just being like, how are you doing? She's like, ow. It hurts.
Don't touch me.
Don't touch. We've got that fairy gun thing.
Yeah.
And like, she's like, and I'm like, I'm barely like touching. And you're just like, but
hurts. She didn't give up.
That's the thing. I mean, if there's one thing I take away and will continue to really focus on is not giving up, no matter how hard it is. Because if you really want to be successful, if I want that pro card, I will give it everything I've got. I don't want to have any regrets at all, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm not hitting all my meals 100% every single time. There are times when I get busy at work, I miss meals and all that stuff. But you get back on your lane and then just reset again, right? Just don't quit.
It's
it's like the prospectors, right? This guy yelled at me. He cussed me out on the phone. I'm going home. Right. So you're saying, what? Keep going, man. I mean, you're not going to get, the muscles are not going to grow unless you keep going past lactic stage.
You got to break down before you break through. And it's like, and just like everything is that one thing that I've noticed and you've seen this too, right? With the most successful agents, the most successful individuals, let's just make it neutral across all industries. The most successful individuals, it's not about how many times they fail or fall off the horse, it's how quickly they get back up.
Right.
That's the main thing that I've noticed about Evie, is that for those that don't know her routine, right? She wakes up at 3 a.m. in the morning. Why? Because that's the only time that she can get her cardio in. Showers, comes to work, we'll leave at 4. That's when she'll do her strength training. And so if she misses one or the other, guess what? She will add it on, because it's not about failing in that moment. It's about getting back up quickly. That's the perseverance that most people are afraid of. And for whatever reason, right? And I just say, bless your heart.
Yeah. And at every level of your growth, you have a level of lactic, don't you? So you're here, and then you keep going up. Isn't there another level of lactic? So as we get better, we got to know this thing's coming with us, this pain or this wall, like the runners have the wall. I mean, we're going to have it in prospecting, and it's part of the business. And I think the mistake, here's my editorial comment, that real estate never told us this when we got in, right? You're going to love houses, Stephen. Come on in. We'll get to look at couches. You get to look at big houses and we'll drive around. Is this fun?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you go, holy crap, this is not exactly what I was. And we're not really telling, I think the industry has done it to themselves.
Oh, yeah.
This is why you have an average of 3.9 to 6 deals a year on the average agent. But then again, the one who gets it, like when you look at the production, if someone gets it, and this is going to be a loaded question, but if someone really gets it and they're at, I don't know, 0, but they do get it, how fast could they grow, you think? If someone really got it and understood what Evie's saying and they're putting their time in and gosh, putting all that work in, they don't have to take that long because there's not a lot of competition, do you think?
There is none. It's very, very, very common, especially in Southern California, in most industries where it's saturated. But here's the thing, it's a saturated industry, but it's not a competitive one. Because again, what we're really looking at is that if the average deals, like here in SoCal, 3 is the average. You're in the top 5% if you've done 7 deals, and it's it's insane. It's absolutely insane. But that's the reason why, is that there's no competition out there. So to answer your question, as far as saying, for a person that gets it, how quickly can they be successful? The real question to that question, is really, what time are you willing to commit? It's time over task.
Right.
That's it. It's just the time over task. If you get it, then it's the smallest thing. There's an agent in our office that, early on, she's been in the industry for, I think, 28 years now. And amidst everything that's going on, #2020, right, this is going to be her most successful year ever in the industry, completely debt-free, right? House paid off 100%, all because, guess what she did? She committed to reaching out to 15 people a day in her database.
Awesome.
That was it. Just 15 people. And you would think, how can you have your most successful year by 15 people a day? Mind you, that started in July. Started in July.
And age has nothing to do with it. And I hear all this, well, I've been at this other job for 40 some years and I just can't see. I mean, there's so many friggin' excuses and the opportunities are there. And, it's not like Evie was doing this all her life. I mean, you got in really late to come into the.
Yeah, I just hit my 1 year, and I turned 45 today. And I never thought I would get myself into this. But it's pretty rewarding when your hard work that you put in and you get to see the result. And so it almost sparks you to, okay, I want more on this one. Yeah. Let's see how far I can go with this, right?
It's by pushing your limits. It's and I think that's really what it comes down to, is embrace the suck, right?
Yeah.
Embrace the suck, because guess what? We all have an opportunity to learn and grow. And it really does come down to it. If you take that extreme ownership, right? That person yelled at you, get over it. Are you going to ever meet them in the grocery store? Are they going to be able to pin you out? Wait, are you that guy that called me that wanted me to sell my house? Yeah, I told you to F off before. Right?
You sound like
Yeah, right. You sound like no one's gonna know. No one's gonna know. But meanwhile, we get cursed down. We're like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. Right?
Well, first of all, if you have kids, guys, you've been cursed out most of the time. So the kids do it, no problem. But a stranger does it, and you're like, oh my God, I'm done for the day.
Yeah, right. Well, exactly. And so it's like when you embrace the suck, it's really, when you think of it from this perspective, is that pain, right? And what we've been kind of like the theme of what we've been talking about is combining business with athleticism, is that when you're looking at that pain, as far as it's temporary, that pain is temporary.
Yeah.
And it's very easy for us to compound and be fearful of that. Congratulations, you're human if you're fearful of pain, right? Congratulations if you want to avoid that. I don't know many people that would love to just walk across, shards of glass.
Yeah.
But guess what? If your child was on the other side and their life was in jeopardy, you're going to walk through that pile of glass all day, every day, twice and 3 times over, right? So that's the main thing that I would say, is that when you embrace the suck of it, it's because in that moment, that compounding pain, it seems so real and it seems so scary and it seems like it would continue. But if you look at it as purely temporary and saying, what can I learn from this? And how does this contribute to my main goal? By keeping that in perspective in front of you at all times, it's easy to say, thank you, next.
And everybody has, personal pain, stuff going on in their life. I mean, there's all levels of pain, but if you pick this profession, you're going to have to get past that and get through this and make it, because I don't know another profession that you can go a couple hours in a training room and get a license and make $500, $600, $800, $1 million a year that quickly. If you apply yourself. So this is actually a gift. This industry has been a gift. I've been in it for 35 years and been through a lot of personal stuff and had to get through. I remember I had asked this mentor before we all got together, another company I worked with, and I said, listen, I just got divorced and I have 2 kids and I need to get myself financially back. And he goes, well, you're going to make 100 contacts a year. 100 contacts a day. Yeah. And like I was ready, my stomach went, what? And this is before dialers, right? So I'm using 2 phones and doing this stuff. And when 2 people pick up at the same time, I'm using 1 script and they go, no, yes, boom, boom. And in the old days, they had you ever heard of the hammer, what they used to call the hammer? Yeah. The hammer was the person sitting next to you that were making calls before you were making them to let you know that someone was home. Yep. I mean, crazy stuff. But you know what? These people were fighting through the pain. They didn't stop and go, you know what? I don't have a hammer. Oh, I'm afraid to make 100 calls, contacts in a day. I don't know if I want to work out. I mean, it's the emotion. So man, let me just tell you, Wendy says, you guys are wonderful. Thank you. She's just great. She's new to the business. Just been hired as an admin operations manager for a real estate team. And she says, thank you, in Atlanta. So Wendy, good luck. And so let's final words of advice. Evie, let's give Wendy some advice. She's the operations admin for a team manager. And, what closing thoughts, advice can you give someone like that? And Stephen, you too.
My biggest thing is just don't quit. I mean, I know it sounds it's simple. Pretty simple. Don't quit no matter how tough it gets. Ask for help. Ask for support. Ask questions. If you have an opportunity to have a coach to guide you through it, do it, right? Because I would have not been able to do all of this without my coach. Because
that's beautiful.
You need that.
Yeah. So, Stephen, what do you think? What suggestions, advice, books, anything that you think you can give someone to say, okay, here's some advice. This is what works. Do it and shut up.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just like, honestly, the number one thing that I would say for people is that it's easy, especially in today's world, age and technology, even with Espresso Agent, the tools that you guys provide they're limitless. The opportunities that you provide are absolutely limitless. And I think that we've become such a society that things are so easily accessible to us that it makes it that much harder to focus on the simple tasks, right, at hand of what you and you alone can do. And I think that the best advice that I could give anybody, and just in this industry, in any industry, is make it not about yourself, but about the others. Because I've noticed, just psychologically speaking, right? Most of the times in dealing with cancer patients, when they say, I'm not ready to die, it's because the things that they're remorseful for is that the impact that they didn't have on their friends and family, what they didn't do for others. It's not always about themselves. In fact, at the end of life, many people have rarely made it about themselves. So if we take that opportunity, and if we were to look at it from, if we only have limited amount of time, and we all do, is that what are those conversations that you're going to be remembered by? That last conversation that you had, how are you going to be remembered? And when in that moment that it may be painful for you, but who needs to hear your message? What's that absentee owner that are, challenged with what's happening in that property for a renter or a tenant that's not performing? What about that notice of default that they have no idea what's to come, right? It's like those buyers that are paying endless amount of rent, right, going towards nothing. And then if they need to cash in on some kind of equity, they can't. So if you feel the pain and carry that load for someone else, that I think is the first step to true fulfillment and living a life worth living and leaving a legacy worth creating.
And stop masking fear.
That's it. Stop masking fear, because the fear is about yourself. The fear is about yourself. Get over it.
Yeah. This is great. Guys, this has been great. It's great to kind of get back together and talk a little bit. We haven't seen each other in a while, and I'm so happy for you guys. And it was great. It was awesome. How can they, if they have any questions, Stephen, Evie, whatever, how can they get a hold of you? What do you recommend?
You can shoot us an email. We can put the email here.
Yeah, so we can put it in the chat box here. So either email, Evie has her Instagram page as well. So if you want to follow her and engage, it's hashtag FitOver40 SD. What is it?
It's Smiley06.
I'll tell you. Doing so well until you started going down that path. It's her birthday. Come on.
It's okay, you remembered my birthday.
Yeah, yay! So email, obviously is great. Social media, we can be
We're on
found
Facebook
on there.
and Instagram.
Facebook and Insta and everything like that. So we'd love to engage, and if there's any additional questions, we're always here, because this is about fulfillment and actually helping people.
Well, this has been great. Keep in touch. Let's keep talking. Say hi. I want to see how Evie's doing, and I appreciate it today. Thanks so much, guys, for being on Master.
I appreciate it.
Bye.
Appreciate you.